Footnotes/reference notes for chapters 1 and 2. See dispossession is 9/10 of the law, which examines how the martial court's land decisions entrenched land theft doctrine. Park, K. Sue, The History, Wars and Property Law, Conquest and Slavery as Foundational to the Field, Yale Law Journal, 2022, on how title registries solidified colonial dispossession. Acemoglu, D. The Economics of Labor Coercion, Analysis of how coercion functions in contractual labor systems. Steinfeld, R.J. Coercion, Contract and Free Labor in the 19th Century, Buffalo Law Review, 2003, on indenture, coercive contracts and labor law. Bajenstos, S.R. Consent, Coercion, and Employment Law, Critical Analysis of Voluntary Contracts in Unequal Power Dynamics. Entering Chapter 3, Slavery, the Engine Beneath the Empire, where we dig into how slavery wasn't simply a moral tragedy or historical footnote, but the economic, legal, and psychological blueprint for systems that still structure our world today. This chapter will expose how the logic of ownership, commodification, and dispossession embedded in slavery didn't end with emancipation, it evolved. Chapter 3. Slavery. The Engine Beneath the Empire. Slavery has never been abolished from America's way of thinking. Nina Simone. Slavery is often taught as a discrete era, an unfortunate deviation in humanity's moral evolution. In textbooks and mainstream media, it appears with an expiration date, abolished, outlawed, corrected. But that view hides the deeper, more unsettling truth. Slavery didn't end. It mutated. Its logic, the idea that human beings can be reduced to assets, categorized, priced, extracted, and discarded, became the foundation for nearly every institution we still uphold. The modern economy, legal property structures, higher education, labor law, and policing all bear the DNA of slavery's machinery. To understand the present, we must first tell the truth. Slavery was not a historical mistake, it was a systemic success. More than labor, a total blueprint. We often think of slavery as forced labor. And yes, it was that. But it was also much more. Slavery was a total system of control, legal, economic, psychological, and social. It defined who could own and who could be owned. It wrote these rules into law, enforced them with violence, justified them with theology, and normalized them with science and culture. Every part of the legal and economic system had a role. Law upheld the right to own people, to sell children, to rape with impunity, to punish without trial. Finance insured slave ships, collateralized enslaved people as property, and allowed banks to profit from their bodies. Education trained legal scholars, theologians, and economists to intellectualize slavery as natural, moral, or necessary. Religion blessed it. Medicine experimented on it. Slavery was not a glitch in the system, it was the system. Endowments built on bodies. Many of the world's most elite institutions, including universities, banks, and governments, trace their fortunes to slavery. Not metaphorically, financially. Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Columbia, and many others benefited directly from the slave economy, through donor wealth, tuition funded by plantations, or even owning slaves themselves. Insurance companies like Aetna and New York Life once wrote policies on enslaved people, payable to slave owners. British banks received billions in reparations, not for the enslaved, but for the owners after abolition. The residue of slavery was not just cultural, it was capital. That capital compounded. It became endowments, stock portfolios, and real estate empires. And today that capital still speaks, in policy, in access, in silence. A legal system built to protect slave wealth. The legal legacy of slavery runs deep. U.S. law was designed not to restrain slavery, but to protect and regulate it. From the Constitution's 3/5 clause to the Fugitive Slave Act, slaveholding interests were baked into the founding documents. Even after the formal end of slavery, the legal infrastructure remained. Black codes, convict leasing, Jim Crow segregation, and mass incarceration all functioned as legal continuations of slave labor. Property law evolved to protect the rights of former owners. Labor law emerged with loopholes, especially for domestic and agricultural workers, that excluded formerly enslaved populations. Policing in the South evolved directly out of slave patrols. Slavery ended in name. Its mechanisms were merely rebranded. Inheritance, the wealth that never left. One of slavery's most enduring legacies is inheritance. White families accumulated generational wealth from slavery, land, homes, businesses. Black families, denied legal personhood, property rights, and even literacy, started with nothing. That gap did not close, it widened. Today, the racial wealth gap in the United States is staggering. Median white wealth is 6 to 8 times that of black households. This is not just the legacy of individual racism. It is the outcome of a system that legally authorized theft for centuries, then failed to repair or redistribute. The myth of meritocracy collapses under this weight. If wealth was stolen, then passed on, then protected, how can earning it ever be separated from its origins? Psychology of a system, dehumanization as design. To justify slavery, a profound psychological project had to unfold. Entire fields, phrenology, anthropology, theology, were weaponized to create a hierarchy of value. Africans were described as subhuman, hypersexual, dangerous, docile, or childlike, all to rationalize ownership. This wasn't just propaganda. It was institutionalized belief, crafted over generations. Those lies became the basis for textbooks, laws, sermons, and medical journals. And those beliefs didn't disappear after emancipation. They linger. They evolve. They show up in police reports, in sentencing disparities, in media portrayals, in school discipline rates. The ideology of slavery never died. It just got better at hiding. Slavery's lessons for capitalism. Slavery taught the world how to maximize extraction while minimizing costs. Enslaved people were forced to produce at scale with zero wages, no rights, and total surveillance. That model, maximum productivity with minimal protection, didn't vanish. It was exported. Today's global supply chains, warehouse labor, gig economies, and prison labor all reflect echoes of that logic. Workers without healthcare, rights, or security aren't enslaved, but they are part of a lineage of disposability. Capitalism didn't replace slavery. In many ways, it perfected its methods. We don't need guilt. We need memory. To confront slavery's ongoing legacy is not to wallow in guilt but to awaken memory. Guilt is immobilizing. Memory is clarifying. The goal is not to shame people alive today, but to hold accountable the systems still profiting from the theft. Until we understand slavery as a present system, not just a past event, we will never break its hold on our economics, our politics, or our imaginations. A system cannot reform what it was designed to do. The most dangerous myth is not that slavery existed. It's that it ended. We inherited its structure, its tools, its wealth, its wounds. And if we hope to dismantle what comes next, from prisons to poverty, we must begin where it all began. Not with freedom, but with ownership. Next up, Chapter 4, Buccaneers and Blood Money, the Pirates' Place in Empire. We'll explore how piracy wasn't rebellion, but freelance colonialism, state-sanctioned theft by another name. Chapter